Hello and welcome to my video series on how to service a Z1000SX. In this video we're going to be checking and lubricating the rear suspension. You'll need to get the back of the bike off the ground, whether you use an ABBA stand or I'm lucky enough to have a ramp and a bike jack. So I've just gone underneath the frame here. You will need to remove the side stand on the other side, and I've just got it strapped down so the bike's secure and it's not going to go anywhere. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to rotate the back wheel, feeling for any roughness in the wheel bearing. And if you want, just give the wheel a bit of a shake, just to check for any free play. And then secondly, grab hold of the swinging arm and just move from side to side and up and down, just to see if there's any play in the swinging arm bearings. If there was any play, you'd have to investigate that. Also, while we've got it wheel free at the back, we can just check our rear tyre, check the tread, check for any cuts or nicks. So there you can see the brake pads, we can just check the thickness, we can check the brake disc for any scores or nicks. And also we can check the wheel for any dents or damage. Just make sure it's all good. In the service manual, part of the service is to check this tie rod and these rocker arms for smooth operation. And to do that in the manual they tell you to bounce the bike up and down 5 times, which obviously I can't do at the moment because I've got it jacked up. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this tie rod off and lubricate the bearings, because I think after 4 years it's worth doing. Now, strictly speaking, you don't need to grease the bearings as part of the service. I just think after 4 years it's worth having a look at them and checking them out. There is a bit of work involved to do this because we need to remove the rear mudguard. So firstly we're going to take the rear exhaust off. So to do that we need to undo the clamp here. We're only going to take this silencer off this side. I've got to dodge to get to the mounting bolt the other side. I'll undo that 10mm there. And then we need to undo the mounting here. It's just a nut and a bolt. And if you're careful when you take this off, you shouldn't need to renew the gasket. I quite often take this silencer off when I clean the bike so I can get to the swing arm and get to the chain strip easier. So just give that a little twist, a little wiggle. Nice and gently. There we go. And that's all just so we can get to these 2 mounting bolts here, so we can get this mudguard out of the way. Now we can undo the 2 mounting bolts this side. So it's just a 5mm Allen key you need for that. Now this is the other side mounting bolt, and you can kind of get on there with an Allen socket. I mean, if you had a ball-ended one it'd be better. I mean, obviously it would be easier to take this exhaust off, but this is the side that's got the valve in the exhaust with the cables that go up. And me being me and lazy, I'm just going to work around it. So I'm just going to put an Allen socket in there, and I'm going to use a spanner to turn it, and then I can just undo it. And then you should be able to get it out with your fingers. Like that. And there is just a bracket that holds the brake pipe flexi on there, so we'll get that out of the way. And we do unfortunately need to undo the foot peg, which is not too much problem. So 6mm Allen bolts hold this on. This may be very tight, so we're just going to undo those. It's loose already. And the reason we've got to take this off is there's 2 quick release plastic rivets that hold the mudguard onto the swinging arm. So I'm just going to support that with one hand, undo that with the other. And you just need to be careful as well, because we've got the brake pedal switch, so we don't want to damage that. I'm just going to put a bit of rag down on the exhaust, and that should just hang there enough for me to get to those two rivets. And similar to what holds the front fairing on, we're just going to push the centres in like that, and then these should come out like that. I'll do it in a minute when I can use two hands, but they just come out like that. Now we can just lift the mudguard out of the way. Let's just feed it out, and that means we can now get access to our linkage. So now, just before we start undoing it, just to show you, that's the tie rod there, and these are the rocker arms, and this obviously is your rear shock. So we've got to undo all these nuts and bolts. They are quite tight. You definitely want to make sure that the bike is secure. There you go. And then there's just one real awkward one, which is this bottom one. You can actually reach down, the same go through from the right hand side. At least they're all loose now. Right, before we undo the lower shock bolt, it might be worth just getting yourself a bit of wood or something like that, just so you can get it underneath the wheel, because you're going to need to take the tension off the swinging arm to take this bolt out. So I'm just going to leave that bit of wood there. And then we can undo this nut and bolt. We already. So let's get that nut off like that. And then I'm just going to lift a bit of wood and just go down there a second. See, we've got a bit of movement. And then we can just take the weight and just pull the bolt out. So next we can undo the bolts that hold the rocker arms on. Just get that out of the way. Just make a note of which side and where these go. So just to get a pair of pin nose pliers and just grab the head of the bolt and just pull that out of the way. And then just lift the tie rod up. So now this is off, we can inspect the bearings. So first things first, just want to grab the sleeve, which is the inner bit, just rotate it, feel for any notchiness or stickiness, and then we can just push these out. And first of all, we'll inspect these collars for any divots or cracks or chips or anything like that. And these are pretty good. And actually it's nice to see that actually my work might have slightly been in vain, because the grease that's in there looks quite nice, but I'm still going to add a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just get some waterproof grease and just smear it in with my finger. And just get some grease in there. Doesn't help to top it up. I know it's a different colour, but it's going to do the same job. I'm actually going to just pack some in behind this rubber seal as well. And then I'm just going to coat this sleeve in a bit of grease. Like that. Obviously you want to wipe them off and clean them first. And we can pop that back in there, like that. Oh yeah, that's lovely. To show you, we're going to do the same here as well. Take these collars out here. One out there, one out for the shock. Don't worry about the dust seal coming off, that's fine. And again, actually looking in there, they look pretty good. and just we'll clean these collars off, but just check that they're in good condition. You will see some discoloration where the rollers sit, but they look pretty good. So I'm just going to wipe those off, re-grease them and pop them in. We can refit the tie rod, so I'm just going to pull that out of the way gently, just start that in the hole, and then I'm going to reach across, plop this in where it needs to be. Right. And the only thing to note, actually, I should have showed you before I put it in, this bolt is longer than the other three. So if you've got a handful of bolts, you don't know which one, the longer one out of the four is the one that goes at the bottom of this tie rod. So I'll pop the nut on there from the other side. I'm not going to worry about doing it up just yet. Now we can refit the rocker arm. You can actually see from the witness marks which way round it goes, but if you're in any doubt, the straight edge goes at the top and the bigger cutout goes to the back. So I'm just going to first of all fit that through the tie rod, then I'm going to get my next bolt and put that through there. We'll do the shock last. Now we can refit the other side rocker arm, so I'm going to put that on there, put that on there. I'm just going to loosely put these bolts on. Nuts even, sorry. And then lastly, I've still got my bit of wood underneath the back wheel, so I'm just going to lift, if I need to, yeah, I'm going to need to lift that up and then kind of dance this in like that. Torque figure for all these nuts is all the same, it's 34 Newton meters. So just got to try and get on them best you can. Now we're ready to refit the rear mudguard. So I'm going to slide that in. Might just have to push the brake flexible pipe out of the way a little bit. So we just get that into position. We can refit these two bolts. I'm just going to put a bit of copper slip on there. Easier to fit this one first because this goes through the chain guard as well. So I'll just leave that in there like that. Grab my next bolt and just pop a little bit of copper slip on that one as well. Again, these are only small bolts, so they don't need to be like mega tight, but you don't want them coming loose. Now we're ready to fit our two little quick rivets, so we'll just pop those in there. And I'll just show you, want to make sure that they're backed out so the tail is out that way. This one's a little fiddly. And then just using the screwdriver, just push it in very gently to the first click, like that. Now we can refit our footrest, so I'm just going to lift that up into position. Start one of the bolts. Now the torque figure for this is 25 Newton meters. Now we can refit the last bolt for the mudguard. Don't forget the bracket that secures the brake pipe. So we'll just get that lined up. And as before, I've put a little bit of copper slip on the bolt. And just gotta, you might just have to fiddle around a little bit to get it to start by moving the mudguard up and down. And then we're just going to wind that in with our fingers. I can get the bit on it. And then, like I said before, just use a spanner on your bit if you can. Right, so the last job we've got to do on the rear end is to check our chain for tension, condition and clean and lube it. I've left the exhaust off just so you can see better. And you might have noticed that I've changed the way I've got the bike jacked up because we need the weight on the swing arm now to adjust the chain slack properly. So what I like to do first, just because save my hands getting too dirty, is I use GT85. You can use kerosene. Is I clean the chain off first. Just get all the old chain wax off. So spend a bit of time doing that, getting it nice and clean. So I'm just going to keep working on this chain till I get it nice and clean and I'm happy with it. And just a word of warning, just be careful when you're working around the chain and the sprockets that you don't get your finger trapped, because that will really hurt. So now I've got the chain nice and clean, we're just going to inspect it first. So you just want to make sure there's no stiff links or split O-rings. Just make sure it all moves nicely. Like I say, mine's fairly new, so I know mine's in pretty good condition. And then what I tend to do is just start at one point. If you're lucky, you can just find the joining link. And what we're looking for, measured midway between the sprockets, is 20 to 30 millimeters of free play. So I'm going to pull that down, that's just below the 5. 10, 20, 30, so it's a bit loose. And then just do it in a few different spots, because we're going to have to adjust it at the tightest spot. So just keep going round. I mean, if you're lucky and your chain's in good condition, it should be fairly even all the way round. You shouldn't really have a tight spot, but they do tend to develop one eventually. And you can see mine's fairly consistent. So we've got to give that a bit of adjustment really. To adjust the chain, all we're going to do is slacken off these 2 adjustment bolts at the top. They're 8mm Allen keys, is what you need for it. They might be a bit tight. And just slacken those off. Like that. And then what we've got to do, if you look around here, you just need a 12mm Allen key. We'll pop it in there, and this is like a eccentric, so we can just, you can just see actually that's taking the slack up already. I try and aim to get it in the middle if I can. So a little bit more really. And yeah, so that's about 25. Once you're happy with the chain tension, just torque these up. They're supposed to be 64 Newton meters. I normally find that's a bit too tight. They feel like you're going to break something. So I normally go about 45 to 50. So if you do yours up to 64 and you break something, don't blame me, because I never do them that tight. Once you've adjusted the chain and you're happy with the tension, just check on each side that these marks are the same, and then you know that the back wheel's in alignment. So now we're ready to lube the chain. You can go and ride the bike for like 15 minutes to get the chain warm. I tend to just leave it in first gear idling on the paddock stand for sort of 10 minutes. And then I use Worth high performance chain lube. It doesn't fling much, you've probably got your own favourite. And I tend to do all 4 faces of the chain. So using my master link as my guide, I'm just going to spray that on and go round. Spray that face. Like that. And then I spray it from the top down. Obviously be careful of your tyre, you don't want any of this on your tyre. And I'll do that. And then I do the side plates. And then I'll just do the inside. It's a little bit awkward, you can't see the master link from this side, but I just rotate that round. I just like to make sure the chain's got a really good coating of lube so it doesn't rust. Now we can refit our exhaust. This is the seal for it. If there's any doubt, renew it. I've just coated this in a bit of GT85 to help it slip on easier. So we're just going to pop that in there. Just gently twist it in. Like that. Just wiggle it side to side. Then you can refit your mounting bolt. So just pop that through. Locate that. So I'm going to do that up first because this is in the position I want it to be. So the torque figure for the exhaust mounting is 34 Newton meters. I'll just torque that up like that. Now we need to do our clamp up. And the torque for this is 21 Newton meters. I don't tend to torque these, I just do them up by feel. So now we can refit the fairings, which we took off in the first part of this series to do the oil change when we first started the service. So what I tend to do is get the fairing and put my hand through to support it, so then I can connect the indicator wiring like that. Then we can pop this up here, and you've just got to locate these. There's two tabs up here that locate in here, and then you can just push the fairing forward, and you need to make sure this lower trim goes in as well, like that. Then we can locate the fairing on its rubber poppers. One there and one there, like that. Now we can put our bolts in. So we've got one bolt that goes in here, like that, and one that goes up here, like that. So now we need to refit the metal trim. And just show you, it goes, there's like a rubber slot, it goes in there. Yeah, that's got her. And one there. And as you can see, I've put some red rubber grease on there just to make it easier to pop it on. So these are the tangs that have got to go in those slots. And I just find if you grease it up, it makes it a lot easier to pop it in. Then you can fit the bolt that goes in there. Just tighten that up like that, and then we've got the three little quick rivets to put in. So just put them in the hole and then push the tabs in. You've got a tab there, and a sort of cut out there, so that's where our fairing's going to engage. And just to show you on the fairing, we just walk backwards a little bit. So there's one notch that engages and the two cutouts. So the same as the other side, I'm just going to put my hand through it just to connect up the indicator loom. Like that. Make sure that clicks in nicely. And we can get this into position. Try and locate our front tab. Side would help. It's a little fiddly. And then you can get those in as well. There we go. Locate our two rubber stoppers in up there. There's three this side, remember, as opposed to the other side that only has two. So the same again, just those three quick rivets. So I've already fitted them and just push them in. And then lastly, we just need to refit these two rivets under here. So I'm just going to clip that in there, push that in, And then you've got one just at the front, behind the front wheel. So again, just pop that in. Make sure you get all the fingers in. And then just... Now we can just refit the seats. If you remember in the part where I did the spark plugs and air filter, we removed them. So these two plastic lugs just are going to go underneath here. And then you've just got the two 6mm Allen bolts that go here at the back to hold it down. And then lastly, just pop your pillion seat on. So again, it just got a plastic tab that folds under there, but you probably know this anyway. And then, right, well that concludes this series of how to service the Z1000SX. I hope the videos are useful. If you've got any comments or questions, please leave them and I will try and get back to them. I do enjoy reading your comments, good or bad. Until next time, ride safe and work safe.